Okay, so good afternoon, class. This is our first session on the derivative of a function. So we just completed our discussion on limits, and today we will be starting with the derivative. But first, what is a derivative? The derivative of y, which is a function of x at x equals a, is actually the slope of the tangent line to the curve y equals f of x at x equals a. So earlier, in the previous chapter, when we discussed the concept of limits, we also talked about the tangent line. Diba, remember that we defined the limit of a function to be conceptually to be the value that the function approaches as your value approaches a certain value, say a. So we also use the secant line. So ito yung secant line, and this one is the tangent line. So ito, I also mentioned that one of the objectives of calculus is to actually get the slope of this tangent line. And this slope is represented by the derivative. So guys, yung concept of slope, so in line, so for a straight line, the slope is constant, but for curves, it varies from point to point. And the equation of the slope is given by the derivative of y equals f of x. It is also the instantaneous rate of change of a function at a point in its domain. So it's the rate of change of y for every unit change in x. Kasi nga slope, diba? That's how we define the concept of slope. That's change in y over change in x. So yun. So ito yung one of the concepts that you will be discussing in calculus. So for calculus 1, we will only deal with differentiation. And this is our first session on differentiation. Okay? So the derivative of y equals f of x is designated or denoted by the following symbols. You will see f prime of x. Sometimes you will just see f prime depending on whether f is a function of x, of m, of a, or sometimes it's simply y prime or dy over dx. So all these symbols all pertain to the derivative of y with respect to x. And it's given by the following formula. So y prime or f prime of x or dy over dx is obtained by taking the limit of f of x plus delta x minus f of x all over delta x as delta x approaches 0. And that's the reason why before discussing differentiation, we have to cover the concept of limits, because the definition of the derivative is based on limits. Okay, so using this definition, okay, we come up with the four-step rule of finding the derivative of y with respect to x. So first, in y equals f of x, we will substitute x plus delta x for x and y plus delta y for y. After which, you subtract y from the results in step 1 and solve for delta y. Yes, guys? In terms of x and delta x. So we will just illustrate these steps in the next example. So this is example 1. Let's see if it will work. Ayaw. Okay. Ito na lang, guys. So find dy over dx using the four-step rule. So the given function is y equals 2x squared minus 3x. So in step 1, it says substitute x plus delta x for x and y plus delta y for y. So instead of just having y on the left side, we will have y plus delta y. Instead of 2x squared minus 3x, we will have 2 quantity x plus delta x squared minus 3 times the quantity x plus delta x. But of course, in the right side, we have to simplify. That is, we have to expand x plus delta x squared. So using the square of binomial, we will find the square of x plus delta x to be x squared plus 2x delta x plus delta x squared. And for the second term, we apply distributive property. So this is minus 3 multiplied by x, so we get minus 3x. Minus 3 multiplied by delta x, so we get minus 3 delta x. Okay, and then we apply distributive property again for the first term. So it's going to be 2 multiplied by x squared, we have 2x squared, 2 multiplied by the second term, so we have 4x delta x, plus 2 multiplied by delta x squared, so we have 2 delta x squared. And then we just copy the last two terms. Okay. So if there are common terms, you can combine common terms. It's just that for this particular case, we don't have any common term. So that's the first step. So we did it by substituting x plus delta x for x and y plus delta y for y. So based on the definition of the derivative, it's limit of f of x plus delta x minus f of x. So the next step would be to subtract y from the result in step 1. So in y plus delta y, we will subtract y. Okay. So for the left side, okay. So for the left side, y plus delta y minus y. Okay. And for the right side, we will subtract what y is. Y is actually 2x squared minus 3x. So from all these terms that we obtained in step 1, we will subtract minus the quantity 2x squared minus 3x. Okay. And this time we will have common terms. Okay. So we have 2x squared. And then we have minus 2x squared, so they will cancel out. Okay, so let me just put some annotation. So 2x squared here will cancel out with negative 2x squared. Then yung minus 3x dito will also cancel out with the negative of minus 3x. So that's going to be positive 3x. So what we have now is, and of course, y will cancel out with negative y. And so on the left side, we have delta y. And on the right side, we have 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared minus 3 delta x. So that's step 2. Okay. Now for step 3, we divide both sides of the equation from the results we obtained in step 2 by delta x. So now we have delta y over delta x. And the thing that we have on the right side for step 2, yung 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared minus 3 delta x, we will divide them by delta x. Okay? And as you can see, there is a common term on top, and that is actually delta x. Or we can just distribute 4x delta x divided by delta x is 4x. 2 delta x squared over delta x is 2 delta x. And minus 3 delta x divided by delta x is minus 3. So now we have delta y over delta x equals 4x plus 2 delta x minus 3. Okay. Now using the result in step 3, now we take the limit as delta x approaches 0. And that is actually our derivative already. So dy over dx equals the limit of 4x plus 2 delta x minus 3 as delta x approaches 0. And we will find the derivative to be 4x minus 3. Okay? Any question, guys? However, you don't have to perform the 4-step rule every time you're asked to find the derivative because we already have basic differentiation rules. So let's go over these rules. So the first rule is if f of x equals c, that is c is constant, then f prime of x is 0. So the derivative of any constant is 0. So that if your f of x is 5, then your f prime of x is 0. If your f of x is pi, your f prime of x is 0. If your f of x equals e, these are all constants, so your f prime of x is 0. Okay, so the derivative of any constant is 0. So that's the first rule. The second rule is if f of x equals x to the nth power, then f prime of x equals n x to the n minus 1. So that if your f of x is x cubed, your f prime of x will be, so the original exponent here is 3. So we bring down 3. Then the new exponent of x will be 1 less than the previous exponent. So that's 3 minus 1. So f prime of x is 3x squared. For f of x equals x to the 5th power, f prime of x is 5x to the 4th. So that's 1 less than the original exponent. Okay, now if your f of x is 1 over x cubed, we know that 1 over x cubed is the same as x to the negative 3. So your f prime of x is negative 3, x to the negative 3 minus 1. And if you subtract 1 from negative 3, it will become minus 4. Okay, so it becomes minus 3 over x to the fourth. So as you can see, guys, if the exponent is positive, okay, when you take the derivative, the new exponent of x will decrease. Like from x cubed, it will become x squared. But if it's negative, if it's in the denominator, then instead of decreasing, it will actually increase by 1. So that your x cubed become x to the fourth. Okay? And then since 3 is actually in the denominator, it means that the exponent is minus 3. So the one that will become the multiplier of the original thing that you have here is minus 3. Okay, so it's going to be minus 3 over x to the fourth. So that if you have, say, f of x, sorry. So that if you have something like f of x equals, say, 1 over x to the fifth, then our f prime of x is what? Guys, it's going to be minus 5 over x to the 6. So, ganun siya. So, kapag nasa ilalim, tataas. Kapag positive, it will decrease by 1. Now, what if it's a radical? Say, square root of x. If f of x equals square root of x, it means 1/2, x raised to 1/2. So, your f prime of x is 1/2, x to the negative 1/2 minus 1, or 1/2 x to the negative 1/2, or simply 1 over 2 square root of x. So we have a special case for square root of x because you will encounter this a lot of times, so that if your f of x, okay, let's just put it as a rule. If you have 1 over x to the n, then your f prime of x is going to be negative n over x to the n plus 1. Diba? It will increase by 1. If your f of x naman is square root of x, then your f prime of x is going to be 1 over 2 square root of x. So please take note of these two special cases, guys. Okay, the case when you have 1 over x to the n, and the case when you have square root of x. I'm giving you permission to take a screenshot of this particular slide. Okay. So this is just an annotation. I will have to clear them all when you're done. So can I erase them, guys? Okay. So that's the second rule. The third rule is when you have a multiplier, a constant multiplier. So that if f of x equals c multiplied by g of x, then your f prime of x is going to be c times g prime of x. So to illustrate, if you have f of x equals 5x to the fourth, your f prime of x is going to be 5 times the derivative of x to the fourth. Now, previously, we have already obtained, or we have already calculated the derivative of x to the fourth. We found it to be 4x cubed. So we'll just multiply 4x cubed by 5 to get 20x cubed. Okay. Well, let's take another one. Suppose we have, oops, ito pa pala. So yan, second, if we have f of x equals 2 over x to the fifth, okay, your f prime of x is going to be negative 5, diba? Times 2, so that's going to be negative 10. And the denominator will be x to the 6. So it's negative 10 over x to the 6. Question? Okay, let's go to the fourth rule. Parehas, no? Okay. Okay. If we have a sum, then just take the derivative of the sum. I think there are some errors in this particular slide. Well, anyway, if you have f of x equals x cubed plus x minus 5, to get the derivative, you take the derivative of each term. So take the derivative of x cubed, take the derivative of x, and take the derivative of minus 5. or of 5. So the derivative of x cubed is 3x squared. The derivative of x is 1 kasi x to the 0 is 1. And we know from the first rule that the derivative of a constant is 0. So the final answer here is 3x squared plus 1. Okay. For the sixth rule, this time we have y equals u to the n. So it's not simply x, but a function. So u is a function of x. Then dy over dx is n u to the n minus 1. But don't forget to multiply n u to the n minus 1 by the derivative of u with respect to x. So that if you have y equals 2x plus 1 cubed, your y prime is going to be 3 times 2x plus 1 squared multiplied by the derivative of 2x plus 1. The derivative of 2x is 2, while the derivative of 1 is 0. So 2 na lang siya. So that we have 3 times 2x plus 1 squared times 2. So the final answer is 6 times the quantity 2x plus 1 squared. Okay? So these are special cases, guys. Special case for rule 6. If y equals square root of u, then dy over dx equals 1 over 2 square root of u times du over dx. So that if you have y equals square root of 3x minus 5, so automatic na yung 1 over 2 square root of 3x minus 5. What you will take the derivative of is just that of the radicand. The derivative of 3x minus 5 is actually 3. So the final answer is 3 over 2 square root of 3x minus 5. So automatic yung 1 over 2 square root of u, guys. Okay? So if for the product, the derivative of a product, so derivative of u times b is u dv plus v du. So that if you have y equals 5x to the 4th multiplied by 2x plus 1 cube, so here, our u is, okay, u natin is 5x, our v is 2x plus 1. Okay, so that our du, the derivative of 5x with respect to x is actually 5, while the derivative of v with respect to x, the derivative of 2x is 2, and the derivative of 1 is 0. So dv over dx is 2. Applying the formula, ba't naging quotient na to? Product pa lang ah. Sorry guys. Try na natin yung quotient, guys. The derivative of u over b is b du minus u dv over b squared. So applying the formula, so we have y prime equals v, so that's 2x plus 1, times the derivative of u, which is 5 from this, minus u, which is 5x, times the derivative of b, which is 2, all over b squared. So our v is 2x plus 1, so the denominator is going to be 2x plus 1 squared. So applying the distributive property, we have 5 times 2x, 10x, 5 times 1, 5, and 5x times 2 is minus 10x. So 10x and minus 10x will cancel out. So what's left in the numerator is 5. So the final answer is 5 over 2x plus 1 squared. Okay? Check ko lang, guys. So yon. Okay. So here we have our u is, okay, well anyway, ganito siya. Our u is 5x to the 4th. Then we will take the derivative of 2x plus 1 cube plus 2x plus 1 cube multiplied by the derivative of 5x to the 4th. Okay, so we just copy 5x to the 4th. The derivative of 2x plus 1 cube is, so 6 times the quantity 2x plus 1 squared. This is something that is solved already in the previous slide. So ganito siya. Okay, so u, nagmo-move pala kasi. Okay. So ang u natin Okay. Our u is 5x to the fourth. Our v is 2x plus 1 cubed. So our du is 5 times 4, that's 20. So that's 20x cubed. While our dv is bring down 3, subtract 1 from 3. So that's squared multiplied by the derivative of the base. The derivative of 2x plus 1 is 2. So the 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 6 times 2x plus 1 squared. So ito yun. Ito yung dv. This one is u. This is our dv plus v. And this is our du. Okay. So by distributive property, we have 30x to the fourth times 2x plus 1 squared. Plus, we just write 20x cubed before 2x plus 1 cubed. And then we take the common factor. Okay, so the common factor is 10x cubed times the quantity 2x plus 1 squared. So if the first term is divided by the common factor, so that's 30 over 10 is 3. This is x to the fourth. We only have x cubed outside. So x to the fourth divided by x cubed is x. So 2x plus 1 squared naman yon, so it will just cancel out. So this one is what we will get if the first term is divided by the common factor. What about if it's the second term which is divided by the common factor? So I have 20 divided by 10 is 2. So x cubed will totally cancel out. But 2x plus 1 here is raised to the third power, and we only have 2x plus 1 squared outside. So that means we have one more, 2x plus 1. So that's 2x plus 1 raised to the first power. So if this is simplified, it's going to be 3x plus 4x plus 2. And of course, we can combine 3x and 4x to become 7x. So the final answer for our y prime is 10x cubed times the quantity 2x plus 1 squared times 7x plus 2. Okay, question guys? Okay, so we're done with rule 8.